Hey, what's good everyone? Welcome to Ice Rink Diaries, your local Iceman here. And today I got a little time to burn before my next ice cut. So I want to go over all the grease points and how we grease the Zamboni. So we'll start off reviewing the maintenance log and showing you the maintenance service intervals recommended by Zamboni. I'll walk around the machine and show you all the grease points. What we got here is the preventative maintenance schedule for the 546. Again, which is this machine over here. But this also applies to the 500 as well as many Zambonis that are out there. I have the book over here for the 500, our maintenance log I should say, because this maintenance log is a little more detailed than the other one because our newer one doesn't have as much work on it as I've done on this one. So in this section of the maintenance log, every time I replace a part on the 500, I go ahead and log it down. So starting way back, let's see how far this thing goes back here. This entry I made was back in 04, I guess. So replace cooling fan, yeah, because that cooling fan, the wiring harness in it, 500, the Volkswagen Jetta engine always burnt out. So that's Andy. Andy's still here as well. So every time I replace parts on this or we change the oil, we go ahead and log it down. And again, this machine right here is much more extensive because the older machine. So the maintenance log here for the 546, again, it's kind of thin because we haven't done a whole lot. Haven't had it done a whole lot on it. But anyway, the second part of the maintenance log here is the daily, weekly, monthly, semi-annually, and basically yearly greasing points that we do. And basically this refers to, I'll flip back over to the front page. This refers to this list right here, which I will go through here in a minute. But again, every time we grease it, every time a daily, weekly, monthly. And I'm going to be honest, I don't write down always the daily ones I do. It's just more of a look over. But when I hit the weekly ones, I'll check the daily. But I don't write down here every day when I do it. Perhaps it's probably a good practice at bigger rinks. We have a lot of people working, but here where there's just a few loose and back who take care of the machine, I kind of know what's going on here. These two pages are kind of this refers to these grease points, and I'll walk around the machine and I'll show you the grease points on the machine itself. I won't grease every point in front of you. I don't think that's time well spent. So let's go ahead and start with the daily. So the daily, what we do is we go around, basically, let's start from the bottom because that's basically what we do mostly. It's just walking around, do a visual inspection. Basically we're looking for pools of oil, pools of hydraulic fluid, anything on the ground that indicates that something's wrong with the motor. As well as before every resurfacing, before we drive out, we kind of walk around the machine, make sure the fill hose is out of the way and the shovel hasn't fallen over, or there's really nothing left behind underneath the Zamboni or around it that we get run over. So check the hydraulic level. That's something that you kind of do as you fill the machine up, because when you put the hose in the Zamboni, and I'll show you that, it's just right there. That's pretty, I don't know, you can't miss it. You definitely want to check the blade daily to make sure there's no nicks in it that's sharp. We write down on the board when we change it, and we get about, depending on how busy we are, anywhere from 7 to 10 days out of a blade. But I don't really check the angle every day. I don't know why you would want to check the angle every day. I know some rinks, some guys won't move the blade at all, but our concrete is pretty unlevel, so we have thin parts in the ice, so to say. So we have to raise our blade over those areas at times, as well as you want to raise your blade over the crease. Nevertheless, that's a video for another time, but you definitely want to check the sharpness of the blade and change the blade if needed. Grease bottom auger bearing, that's something I do every day. Usually, I heard it's best to do it at night, because when the machine sits overnight, you don't want water sitting in the bearings, so you grease the bearing at night. But that's something I do at the end of my shift. But moving on to the weekly inspection, I don't necessarily do it in this order, but I'm just going to go through it in the order that's listed right here. So, lubricate and check adjustment of the horizontal conveyor chain, 5/16 deflection. I actually did a whole separate video on that, so you can refer to that video on how to check the deflection. And I won't really remove the side today to show you that. You just refer to that video. After that, you want to grease the horizontal and vertical auger bearings or conveyor bearings. Grease the lift bar pins and bolts, the foot pedal, the brake pedal, blade adjustment universal, board brush pivots, You're going to check the tire wash and clean the wash water basket. And again, that's all done weekly. On a monthly basis, you're going to change the engine oil and filter, or every 200 hours. It's not really monthly. It's probably every, I don't know, 2 to 3 months, depending on what time of year we're in. But what I tell my drivers is that if you see a puddle of oil underneath the machine, that's when to start worrying. Same, we change it every 200 hours. We don't really have to worry about it burning out or losing oil, so to say. Let's just really leak it out in the ice. Grease steering linkage, grease drive universals, grease dump tank cylinder pivot points, grease dump tank lid pivot points, grease belt shaft slip joints. Then check oil level in the differentials, check oil levels in the transfer case, as well as check and adjust the wash water drive pump belt. Also adjust and check conditioner down pressure springs. And I'm going to do a separate video on that one. Semi-annually, you're going to check hydraulic hoses for wear, check water hoses for wear, check electrical wiring for wear. And that's something you do almost daily. Just kind of look around, make sure nothing's going on. But you definitely want to look around the machine and make sure there's certain points where I had a hydraulic hose pop on me one time because it was rubbing funny in the machine, and over time it just kind of wore a hole in it. So you definitely want to check your hydraulic hoses. Then annually check hydraulic oil filter, and after the first filter change, 50 hours, you should replace the filter each 500 hours. Repack wheel bearings, inspect axle shaft universals, check hydraulic oil for contamination, change if necessary, clean rust spots and repaint, and check oil in the differentials. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go over this list and walk around the Zamboni and point out the areas where these grease points are and where the check everything is. I'm really not going to go into the checking the oils and the differentials and the transfer case, or changing the oils and transfer case. I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm just going to keep it basic to basically the grease points that we do, as well as well, the other thing is go ahead and refer to the video as far as the auger chain adjustment and the wash water pump belt adjustment, as well as how to lube the auger chain too, because I covered that in that video. So let's go ahead and walk over to the Zamboni. I'm going to show you where all these grease points and maintenance points are. Okay, with a flashlight and a little pointer here, I'm going to go around and I'm going to do this how I usually do it, how I grease things, because this is best for my memory. Okay, so my first grease point is just this one right here, and this grease is the auger bearing. And there's two of them, one on the other side, but I start with this one first. Then I hit the 3 lift bushings right here. There's one right there. The second one's right here, and the third one's right here. And I'll show you how to rebuild these things in a different video when we do it over the summer in this machine. But there's actually a copper sleeve in here that this bolt slides through, and it's it's called a bushing. And that bushing is actually what rides on this yoke right here that's connected to the conditioner. Then I move on to this one right here, which is the bearing for the wheel and the blade wheel. There's also one inside here on the universal. And here are the lift bushing grease points for the other side. Again, 1, 2, and the third one's back there. And real quickly, to come up here, this is where you grease the horizontal auger bearing, the top part. So you have the top bearing, then you have the bottom bearing. Whoops, you have the bottom bearing right there. Then come back over here, you have the side bearing, which you actually see right here. There's a little cutout on this one. And that grease point is right there. Then I move over here to these, I don't know, plunges or hydraulic arms here. This is for where it connects on the bottom, and this is where it connects on the top. And this hydraulic plunger here, this is on the main. This is what connects basically the lift arm. Imagine this whole lift arm. The conditioner is where my hand is, and the other side, this rod is where this plunger is hooked to. So when the plunger goes down, you basically up in the controls up there, you push the lever forward, and it lifts the conditioner up by extending the arm out. If you want to drop the conditioner on the ice, you pull back on the lever, and it sucks it back up in there, and it pushes the conditioner on the ice. So that's always moving up and down. There's a lot of pressure on it when it's on the ice. So these are two ones that we definitely want to grease. and this is a part of the weekly grease I do. And again, these three right here have long tubes that lead down to the bellows down there, so I usually give them 7-8 pumps of grease to make sure I get grease down there. Then moving over to the board brush over here, there's actually several in this one. There's a grease point right here. There's also a grease point right there. There's one way back there. And there's actually another one right there. This is part of the monthly grease right here. These the lift tank pivot points right here. So there's 3 of them. You got one down here, you got one on the tank, and you got one right here. There's actually another one on the tank up here. Moving to this side of the machine, again, you have your depth tank grease points. There you got 1, 2, 3, and again, the 4th one up there. So underneath the front of the machine, there's a few grease points. You have one right there on your steering linkage, and one right there. You also have on your steering linkage, you have one just on the other side right there. And this one I get on my back and do, it's easier. And you also have one just on back side of this one right there. On this blade adjustment bolt right there, there's actually a grease zert just on the inside, as well as this side right here. All right, there's a good look right there. So there's one on each side, and actually that's an excellent view of the wash water nozzle too. I should have showed it in the video. Holy smokes, I should have done this for the wash water video. And also considered a monthly greasing are these universals on the drive shaft. In each drive shaft, there's a front drive shaft and a rear drive shaft, and each one has 2 universals and a slip joint. So there's 3 grease points on each drive shaft. So there's one universal there. The second universal is way down back in there. I don't know if you can see it, as well as the slip joint grease zert on the other side here. And then I'll give you a better view of the rear drive shaft because I get in there pretty easy. What we're looking at is the rear drive shaft. We have 2 universals again. You have one right here, one right here. Then just on the other side, if I could get it, there's the zert for the slip joint on the drive shaft. All right, what we're looking at here is the leaf springs for the conditioner, and that's the adjustment bolt way back there. If I can get a little light on it, there it is. That one gets about 1 1/4 to 3 1/2 turns, depending on how old your springs are. And you also have this one right over here. And these are the leaf springs for the blade, and this is the adjustment bolt for it. And this one gets 4 turns. And I'll go ahead and do a separate video on that, how to adjust the down pressure on the leaf springs for the blade and the conditioner over there. Also following the weekly greasing is the gas pedal, which is right there, and the brake. The brake pedal is there. But looking at the under view of the brake, the zert is actually right there, and that's, you want to grease that once a week. And this is where you check the hydraulic fluid level. Like I said, it's right where you fill the hot water up, so it's something that we're always looking at walking past. So there's little high-low indicators right there. This level fluctuates depending on how warm the machine is. The machine hasn't ran in a few hours, so it's usually a tad bit higher, and it can go to a tad bit lower when it's in the mornings when you get here. As far as checking the oil, there's the filter right there, and the dipstick. We use 5W30, and we change we change it every 2 hours. I'll do a separate video on the oil and filter and how to change that, because that's interesting. Then outside of the machine here, we have a recommendation of 75 PSI. So again, once a month, you definitely want to check your tire pressure. As far as the hydraulic filters go, you have one right here. Then you have this one back here that you're not going to be able to see. You have to take the propane tanks off. Then you have to take this this back part right there. You can see it's a separate piece that holds the propane tanks off. If you pull that piece off, it opens up into an open area. There's a guy, it's got to be like a 12-14 inch filter long, maybe only like 4 or 5 inches wide, but that's the primary filter that's behind there. Then again, the second one is right there. I'm going to refer you to the tightening of the auger chain video to go over the inspection and how to check the deflection of the auger chain, as well as the wash water dry pump. Alright, this is the grease gun that I use, nothing too special, as well as the grease. I use a red grease, and I store the grease like this. So at times when you change their canisters, sometimes it's hard to get this thing primed. So if I store the can this way, where all the grease comes down to the bottom, so to say there. So when I slide this thing into the grease gun, all the grease is packed on the bottom. Instead of, if I left it like this, then there would be all the grease to go down and create like a little air gap that you see kind of. Let me pop this off right there. There's the air gap. So when priming it, you don't want that air gap. So when you slide this grease can in, you slide it in this way. And when you rip that little tin thing off, all your grease is right there, and you release that inside, and it makes priming it a little bit easier, at least for me. So, and nothing too special about this grease gun. We had another one where it didn't have the handle, and it was really hard to grease the machine like that. So I got this one with the handle. I really wish I could get one that's battery powered, but those things are so expensive. And again, we're a non-profit, so this works out, good workout. So like everything else in the ice rink, it's just a good workout. Well, I hope you found that video enlightening, and that's all the grease points on Big Red back there. Now also applies for Old Blue, so as well as most of the Zambonis that are out there. So if you have any questions about the content I just threw at you, go ahead and drop them below. And if you have any ideas for new content, go ahead and drop those below too. I got a lot of great videos planned, but if you have something you want to see, or if you have any certain questions you have, or something you want to see about the Zamboni, go ahead and you know what to do. And like Local Iceman says, stay cool.